What should a leader be doing to get ready to have a fantastic offsite that's going to get these results?
Great question. One of the first things I would say that you have to make as a leader, as a decision, is do I want to lead this session or not? This is a basic one. This isn't really the planning, the meat of the session, but there are such thing as facilitators who can come in, like you said earlier, and facilitate a session for you. And as a leader, then you get to be a participant along with the rest of your team. Or you can lead it. I've done both. Both work just fine. And I think we can talk today assuming, let's imagine if they did lead it. But also, even if you're not, you can still, what we're talking about here is still relevant because it can still be what you expect of your facilitator as they come in.
What are some of the pros and cons?
When it comes to, especially if you're new to it, when it comes to your leadership team coming together and working through difficult problems like this, if you're facilitating a session, if you're leading the discussion, you're having to spend a lot of calories, a lot of brain power, making sure that we achieve the outcomes of the day. If you have a facilitator who's leading that discussion and you're just a participant, you can focus on the team members in the room. You can focus on the problems that we're trying to solve. It's just less brain power that you're having to spend. I personally prefer to have a facilitator lead sessions for my businesses. But again, there's plenty of times where I've done it myself. I've done, dozens and dozens and dozens of sessions and love the practice. It's just, it is something that you've really got to be on your game for to be able to pull off the right way. So definitely something to look into. Our executive coaches also do a great job of talking through options like that and helping business owners steer in the right direction.
You also got to think about, kind of your own objectivity. Like I have found, I've facilitated hundreds of these in our organization. Yeah. And when I've done them for EntreLeadership, which is my baby, it's the thing I built, it's my personal leadership team that I'm also in the, weekly in the trenches making this stuff happen. I have such a harder time staying neutral and objective as the facilitator when it's a strategy session for the EntreLeadership team, because I'm so in it, and it's almost like I can't help but just jumping to the end and casting the vision that I've been thinking about and using this as just another way to kind of tell the team this is what we're doing. And done right, the leader needs to sit there as a peer with their team and really, you don't give up your trump card. It's not like you're handing the keys over and they're just going to run roughshod over the business. But in the room, you really need to be a co-contributor to create that buy-in that we're talking about. And as leaders, we can really tilt the room, and especially for the person at the whiteboard with the marker, that can shift the dynamic a lot. And so I have found I actually like the facilitator from another area to come in when it's about EntreLeadership, because I'm so emotionally invested in that area. Whereas with our operating board, I facilitate those a lot. And Dave's the CEO, and he sits at the table, and he would be tilting the room a lot if he was the guy with the marker. And so that dynamic works well. So it's something to think through, like how much are you going to move the room away from objectivity and openness just because of your role with that team in the day-to-day.
That's right. You got to think of a facilitator as a hat that you're wearing. Business owner is another hat that you're wearing. But when you're opening, a discussion or you're trying to draw out team members, you got to just recognize I'm wearing that facilitator hat. I'm trying to keep this conversation going. I'm not trying to just give them the answer and, hard stop the conversation. So 100%, it is very manageable to do. You've just got to give the team a lot of room to be bouncing ideas around and talking with you not dominating the conversation and just telling them what to do.
Okay, so first decision to make is who's going to facilitate this. Let's assume the business owner says, I don't know an outside facilitator. We don't have the funds for that right now. I'm going to take a shot at this thing. Now what?
Great question. I love this question. So now what? You're staring off into the unknown. What do I talk about? What do we use this time for? It's just one big question mark. It's really not that hard. We have a day. We're going to spend a day talking about the business. I always start with, what outcomes do I want out of that day? It's really simple. Imagine we're at the end of that day and I'm looking back. What have we answered? What have we defined? What decisions have we made? For the decisions that we made, where has it made my business easier? I just think, what do I want out of this session? You don't have to start from scratch every time and dream up something, but for where your business is right now. Let's say it's early in the year and you're like, I keep hearing that I should have an annual goal. I should have some sort of desired future, and we don't have one. The outcome is define your desired future. I'd love to have an on paper, on purpose annual goal for my business. Done.
Yep.
That's something you can work from, right? It's not the 1,000 different options. It's just here and now in my business where I'm at. What do I want out of this time?
Yeah, that's good. That's ultimately like the offsites that I've been a part of that go really well. Everyone, the leader especially, but everyone has a clear sense of by the end of today, these are the outcomes that we're going for. It's kind of your compass that helps you stay on track through the day. As I've done prep with leaders and they can't quickly top of mind answer that question, I found it helpful to kind of get them to think about what problems you want to solve. Like, where do you feel pain right now? What are you frustrated about? We have a lack of priorities, or it just feels like chaos. Tell me more about chaos. And, you may not initially know the outcomes, but if you can marinate in your pain a little bit, right? That's what we all love to do. What's driving you crazy all the time? And then if you could eliminate the thing that's driving you crazy in the form of, well, if we could hire this key person or define what success looks like for this initiative, or, you can kind of work backwards from wherever you're frustrated, because typically under the hood of that frustration is the outcome that you could kind of be solving for in that particular day.
That's right. I agree. If nothing comes to mind on the outcomes, it's that example of it's early in the year and we don't have a desired future. That's a felt pain right now in my business. I feel like I'm in the year and I don't know where I want this year to end. Usually felt pain is, it's always there for every business owner, and just spending, 30 minutes to an hour just journaling, writing some of those options down, it becomes pretty clear pretty quick. You and I have done a lot of prep for a lot of planning sessions, and the topic seems to rise to the top almost every time in 30, 45 minutes with a lot of clarity.
Yeah. Well, another thing that we've used, and especially as we've rolled out the 6 drivers for EntreLeadership, this has been our framework that's been active and really out in the marketplace for a couple of years now. But if you're just kind of trying to think, okay, where do we want to focus? And just to recap on the 6 drivers, it's your personal leadership, it's your purpose for your organization, it's people and people issues, it's your overall operating plan, your product or service, and your profit. And so you go, okay, there's 6 areas that somewhere in one of those areas, we're probably experiencing more pain or frustration. So does today need to be about our leadership, like how we're working as a leadership team? Or no, today's really about our product. We've got an issue with the way that the service is being provided to our customers, and we're just going to swarm that thing today. It's really difficult to cover the whole business and all 6 drivers in a single offsite. And that's why we're going to recommend that you do it ongoing and not just one time a year. But I have found, especially as we've had the 6 drivers as our framework, if I'm feeling a little bit stuck coming into an offsite, really asking the leader ahead of time or the leadership team, where in one of these areas do we really want to kind of hone in on that particular day?
I love that. As we've been developing the 6 drivers here internally, one way that I've been using them is, let's say for our business, we have our desired futures for the year. We have our annual goals. It's kind of a given that we will spend some time in let's say it's a Q2 quarterly session. We'll spend some time saying, what does our focus need to be this quarter to make sure we stay on track for our desired future? And that'll take some of the time. That's kind of like a home base. Every session we have this annual cycle where we define our desired future, and we have our quarterly rhythms where we manage to it. But then that doesn't take the whole time. A great filter that I've used is, okay, let me go back through the 6 drivers. Let me just kind of size up the business and say, where do I have the biggest issues today? And that changes from season to season.
That's right.
And running through that filter, if I think about people, I mean, there's almost always some stuff there, but whether it's people or product or profit, different seasons, if there's different issues, we'll make time in that same session to say, okay, we're gonna focus on the next quarter, and then we're gonna make some space for talking through some profit margin problems that we've been experiencing this last season because competitors have been undercutting us and eating into our margin.